Hello, and welcome to Cosmic Sleep. We tell peaceful sleep stories for adults, designed to help you unwind and drift into deep sleep. Tonight's bedtime story is Echoes of the Cosmos. The Signal, a journey beyond the stars, where an astronaut follows a mysterious signal and steps into the unknown. Now, take a deep breath. Relax your shoulders and let go of the day's worries. Close your eyes and just listen to my voice. The Osiris-9 drifted through the silent void, its sleek hull absorbing the faint glow of distant stars. The ship had been in transit for 6 weeks, mapping an uncharted sector at the edge of human exploration. The routine had become predictable, scanning empty space, logging anomalies, and moving on. Then the signal came. At first, it was nothing more than a faint pulse buried within the background radiation. A rhythmic thump, 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 subtle enough that the ship's AI, SORA, had almost dismissed it as static. But Eli Mercer noticed. Seated in the dim glow of his workstation, he frowned at the screen. The pattern was too structured, too deliberate. He adjusted the frequency, isolating the sound. Thump, thump, thump. Pause. Thump, pause. Thump, thump, thump. A pattern, a message. A shiver crawled up his spine. SORA. Verify signal origin. The AI's response was smooth and calm. Unknown. Signal is not naturally occurring. No record of its source in any known database. Eli leaned back, running a hand through his short-cropped hair. He had spent years deciphering deep space anomalies, but this was different. This was intentional. And then, Eli Mercer, you have come far. The voice cut through the silence like a whisper in the dark. Eli froze. His name, his exact name. The Osiris-9 was light years from any known colony. No one should have even known they were here. Yet, something did. A message from the unknown. Eli's fingers twitched over the console. Osiris-9, this is Commander Eli Mercer. Identify yourself. No response. He switched channels, sending a direct transmission across the crew's comms. Captain Jensen, we have a situation. Minutes later, Eli stood in the ship's briefing room, the faint hum of Osiris-9's life support system filling the silence. Captain Jonathan Jensen, gruff, pragmatic, built from years of space travel, was reviewing the signal's metadata. Beside him, Dr. Leora Hayes, the ship's signal analyst, scrolled through her tablet, brow furrowed in thought. The transmission is evolving, she said, voice calm but laced with unease. Every time we run a decryption pass, the pattern changes slightly, almost like it's... She hesitated, like it's listening. Jensen exhaled sharply. That's impossible. Eli tapped the table. It knew my name. That got everyone's attention. Leora looked up. You're sure? I heard it, clear as day. Silence hung between them. The Osiris-9 was alone in deep space. There was no way, no logical explanation for this signal to be calling out to Eli specifically. Unless it wasn't just a signal. Unless it was a summons. The coordinates. Leora's hands moved swiftly across her screen, sifting through layers of noise and static. Wait. She zoomed in, highlighting a new sequence buried within the transmission. It just sent us something else. A series of numbers scrolled across the display. Jensen's jaw tightened. Those are coordinates. Eli leaned in. The numbers didn't match any charted system. Leora ran them through the ship's stellar maps. A holographic projection blinked to life above the table, revealing a red dwarf system 5 light days away. No planets, no colonies, nothing. Eli's pulse quickened. That's where it's coming from? Leora nodded. And the signal is getting stronger, like it wants us to follow. Jensen stared at the glowing map. Then he sighed. I don't like this, he muttered. But I like not knowing even less. A moment of silence. Then, set course for the signal. The arrival. 2 days later, the Osiris-9 dropped out of FTL, emerging into the uncharted system. And there it was. Hanging against the dying light of the star, a massive, ring-like structure floated in the void. Kilometers wide, seamless, ancient. A perfect circle of black metal, absorbing all light, unnervingly still. The bridge crew sat frozen, eyes locked onto the view screen. Is it a station? Leora murmured. Or a graveyard? Jensen muttered. Eli barely heard them. His gaze was fixed on the ring's center. It was empty. A void of pure black. Yet something felt alive. And then, as if responding to their presence, the signal stopped. The silence was deafening. And then, the ship lost power. The lights flickered. The engines died. The hum of Osiris-9's systems vanished, leaving only the sound of Eli's own breath. A deep, unshakable stillness took hold. And then, from the shadows of the void, the voice returned. Come inside, Echo. Eli's blood ran cold. The signal hadn't just been calling to them, it had been waiting. And now, it was ready. The Osiris-9 was drifting, powerless. The moment they had entered the system, the ship had been seized by an invisible force. The engines were dead, the controls unresponsive. It was as if something had reached out and plucked them from space. Eli stared at the view screen, watching as the massive ring structure loomed closer. A perfect, seamless loop of black metal, absorbing all light, stretching for kilometers. And at its core, nothing but darkness, a void, a doorway, and they were being pulled toward it. Eli. Leora's voice was barely a whisper. It stopped transmitting. The signal, the thing that had drawn them here, was gone. The silence felt deafening. Can we restart the thrusters? Jensen barked, his voice tight with urgency. No response. The pilot, Rourke, called back. His hands flew over the controls, sweat beading on his brow. We're locked out of all primary systems. Jensen's jaw clenched. Sora, give me a status report. But the ship's AI didn't respond. Eli checked his interface. Sora was offline. No communications, no navigation, no way out. Osiris-9 was being dragged toward the abyss, and there was nothing they could do. A structure older than time. As the ship drifted closer, The details of the ring began to emerge. The surface was covered in symbols, etched patterns, shifting like liquid metal. Not random carvings, something deliberate, a language. Eli felt it in his gut. Someone or something had built this place, and it had been here for a very, very long time. Jensen stepped up beside him, staring at the structure with darkened eyes. "I don't like this," he muttered. "Not one damn bit." Eli barely heard him. His gaze was locked onto the inner ring, the center of the structure. At first, it had seemed empty, but now he wasn't so sure. There was something inside. Not a ship, not a planet. Something deeper. It felt like looking into an ocean trench, a place so dark, so unknowable, that even staring too long felt wrong. Leora exhaled sharply. "We need to figure out what's controlling us. If we—" Then the ship jolted. A sudden impact, rocking the Osiris-9 like it had been struck by something unseen. "What was that?" Rourke yelled. "Status!" Jensen shouted. Eli staggered against the console, eyes darting to the screen. The ring was opening. The beacon activates. A section of the ring's inner surface was shifting, parting like massive interlocking plates. A gateway. And from within, a faint, pulsing light. It wasn't bright, wasn't blinding, just a rhythmic pulse like a beating heart. "Something's inside," Leora breathed. Eli barely heard her. He felt it again, that pull. Not just gravitational, something deeper, something pulling at him personally, as if it had been waiting for him. Then, echo. The voice returned, directly into his mind. Eli's breath hitched. It was not coming from the comms. It was not coming from the ship. It was inside him. And this time, it wasn't just a name. "You have heard the call. Now, step inside." And the ship moved forward, against all logic, against all control. It was being pulled into the void. Inside the unknown. The Osiris-9 crossed the threshold. The moment it did, everything changed. The darkness of space vanished, replaced by an eerie, colorless expanse. The stars disappeared. No galaxies, no light, just a vast, endless nothing. And yet, they were still moving, still being guided deeper. Eli looked around, pulse pounding. "Where are we?" Leora's fingers shook over her console. I don't know. There's no data, no electromagnetic readings, no gravity. It's like we're not in space anymore," Eli finished. Jensen gritted his teeth. "If we're not in space, then where the hell are we?" Then, the ship stopped moving, not gradually, instantly. 1 second, they were drifting. The next, they were frozen in place. A stillness fell over the Osiris-9, and then, from the endless void, something emerged. The first glimpse. At first, it was only a shadow, a ripple in the nothingness. Then the light shifted, and it took form. A structure, massive, geometric, impossible. It floated ahead of them, suspended in the void, a monolithic construct deeper than the ring itself. Smooth, black stone stretching out into impossible angles, and along its surface, the same shifting symbols. But they weren't still anymore. They were moving, rearranging, and as Eli stared, something clicked. The symbols weren't just a language. They were a message, a map, and at the very center, a door. No markings, no visible mechanics. Just a perfect rectangle, carved into the vast expanse of stone. It was waiting. Jensen exhaled. "I don't like this." Leora shook her head. "That makes two of us." Eli took a slow breath. Then he spoke the words before he could stop himself. "I think we're supposed to go inside." Jensen turned, eyes dark. "And what makes you think that?" Eli swallowed, because the voice was still in his head, and it was whispering two words. "Step forward." The silence pressed in. Not just absence of sound, a silence that felt alive. The Osiris-9 was frozen in place. No motion, no vibration, no hum of machinery, as if the ship itself was holding its breath. Ahead of them, the massive structure loomed, dark, imposing, waiting. Eli felt it in his bones. This wasn't just a place. It was an invitation, and the doorway at its center, the smooth, seamless rectangle, was the threshold, a line between what they knew and what waited beyond. The symbols speak. Leora's voice was barely a whisper. The symbols, they're moving again. Eli tore his eyes from the doorway and looked at the shifting markings on the structure's surface. The fluid shapes rearranged, reforming into something new. Then, all at once, they stopped, locked into place, forming a pattern Eli recognized. It wasn't alien anymore. It was familiar. It was his name. Eli. His stomach tightened. Jensen stepped forward, voice edged with unease. "I don't like this." Eli swallowed. Neither did he. And yet, he took a step closer to the view screen, eyes locked onto the doorway. Because now, as he stared, it was opening. The first glimpse beyond. A thin line appeared at the door's center, stretching downward, splitting it apart. There was no noise, no mechanical movement, just an effortless, fluid separation, like space itself was peeling away. Beyond it, light, not bright, not blinding, but deep, like staring into the fabric of the universe itself. Something shifted in the air. The Osiris-9's instruments flickered to life for the first time in hours, only to glitch and distort. Sora's voice crackled through the comms. Then, static. Jensen grabbed Eli's arm. "We are not going in there." Eli didn't answer, because in that moment, something moved inside the doorway, a shadow against the light. Not a figure, not a shape he could define. Just something there, watching, waiting. Then, a whisper in his mind. Software, clear. Step forward, echo. Eli's breath hitched. He didn't know how, but he was sure of one thing. They had been expected. And now the door was open, waiting. The crew stands frozen as the doorway fully opens. Eli feels the pull, a force beyond logic, beyond understanding. What's beyond the door? Who or what is inside? And why does it know Eli's name? Listen to episode 2 to find out what happens next.